Hi, my name is Sandy. I'm a mental health intake worker in Weyburn. I'm here today to present the session called Managing Your Mental Health Information Session. In Sun Country Health, we use what's called Cognitive Behaviour Therapy. And that's the idea of changing your thoughts and your actions so that your feelings will change as well. And within Sun Country Health, we look at the triangles and goals, which are things that we can do to start working on things to change ourselves, to make ourselves better. So when we look at thoughts, actions, and feelings, they kind of make up that triangle, right? Your thoughts interact with your actions, interact with your feelings, and it just kind of goes around. Some people use circles, some people use, other shapes, but we tend to use a triangle when it comes to Sun Country Health. Everything interconnects. How you act really does make a difference on how you feel and how you think. To be able to know how to change one or two of those things so that you can start to feel a little bit better. And if you've experienced difficulty in your life, you're going to notice that probably all three of these things are going to be affected. When it comes to coming to see a counselor, you're going to go in and you're going to tell your story. And that counselor is going to look, again at how you're feeling. Are you crying? Are you angry? Are you upset? What's going on for you that way? But they're also going to look at your actions. Are you somebody that lays around all day or doesn't really seem interested in doing anything to make yourself get better? Are you somebody that thinks, are you a glass half empty or a glass half full person? They're going to look at those kind of things. And when they do, they're going to help you realize that if you were to change your actions, your thoughts and your feelings will change as well. And the same thing goes with your thoughts. If you start thinking differently, talking to yourself differently, you're going to feel and act different as well. Negative emotions do produce negative behaviors. So being able to change those into positive ones will help you get well in the long run. So when we look at setting attainable goals, our main goal is change. Cognitive behavior therapy is all about change. It's kind of the meat and potatoes of counseling. We have to be able to say to ourselves, what are our goals rather than why are we here? Right? We can go on and on and on about the reasons that we come for help. What are the goals that we want to accomplish so that we can change? And we do this by setting ultimate goals and by setting immediate goals. And when it comes to ultimate goals are the big goals, the dreams. Like I'd like to, lose 30 pounds in the next 3-4 months, or I'd like to clean out my entire garage, or go down and clean out my entire basement. I'd like to run a marathon, right? Those are big ultimate goals, not something that you can do in one step. Immediate goals are the steps. Those are the things that will help us reach those ultimate goals. And if you look at it in the terms of a mountain, if you're standing at the base of a mountain, you're not going to just jump right to the top. You're going to make little steps in that mountain and be able to get to the top eventually. How are you going to get those immediate goals into manageable steps that you can actually do? So in order to reach the ultimate goals, you have to break them down into easily manageable steps. And when I use the term for weight loss or getting physically fit, it's a matter of figuring out, okay, how am I going to get those things all done? How am I going to reach each of those little immediate goals? What if you have low motivation or energy? Lots and lots of times when you're struggling with anxiety or depression, you're going to just want to lay on the couch and not do anything. That's going to happen. Especially if you've been going through a really difficult time. Setting those goals is so important, because if you have low mood, then you got low energy and you just don't even want to accomplish anything, and then you get even lower. It comes into a really big pity party when you're feeling like that. So what we do is admit to ourselves, you know what, I am having a really tough time. I've been down for quite a while, but I want to start getting better. So what can I do? I'm going to set some smaller goals so that I can attain them. So we set those small goals, we get to succeed, kind of pat ourselves on the back, and then we have a little bit more motivation to go out and do something better. And we set ourselves some slightly larger goals. Maybe walking around the block twice a week has been good and we've succeeded quite a bit. Well, now I feel really good. Maybe I'm going to try 3. So that's what we do. We tend to have those small goals, be able to succeed, and then set bigger ones because we're feeling a little bit better. Turning problems into goals and goals into plans. Problems and things I would like to change. So what we're going to do is sit down and figure out what are some things in the different areas of my life that I can change. Maybe with family, I want to spend more time with my family. All I've been doing is working or laying on the couch. Maybe I want to, go out and be with my friends some more. Or when it comes to friends, do you have any friends anymore? If you've been isolating yourself, staying home all the time, saying no every time somebody calls to ask you out, they're not going to be there. They're going to say, what's the point? Why bother? So now it's up to you to figure out how you're going to deepen those relationships. How are you going to go out and maybe find new friends? When it comes to work life, maybe you're just not happy in the job you've got and there's nothing rewarding about it. And unless you can make that change, maybe you want to find a different job. Or maybe you want to work on relationships within that job so that your work life can be better. When it comes to lifestyle, what was the last time you did something fun for yourself? Do you ever go out and enjoy things? What are the things that you want to change about your lifestyle? Spending more time on yourself. When it comes to finances, that's a big one for a lot of people. Maybe it's a matter of throwing $20 more on a credit card every month, and I just want to start working on that and getting some things down and feel better about my debt. Or maybe you just want to figure out how can I spend less time in doing impulse shopping. What can I do to stop buying something every time I go downtown? And what we're going to do then is we're going to get you to pick out one problem that you want to accomplish. And at that time, it's important to break it out into your goals in bits, right? So if I go back to the weight loss thing, it's a matter of saying, do I even have a gym in town? Or if I do, how much does it cost to join for a month? What are the hours? Are they even open when I want to go? Do I have gym outfit? Do I have shoes, runners that I can wear in the gym? Do I have anybody that I can go with? That's kind of breaking things down into those small goals and bits so that you can figure out how to accomplish things in the end. Then you want to make some immediate goals. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna make sure I have everything, the money in my budget so that I can pay for that every month. I'm gonna get myself some new runners so that I'm not uncomfortable when I'm working out, and get some gym clothes. I'm gonna put those gym clothes right in my car so that I don't have to go home and walk past the couch and decide, do I want to go on the couch more than I want to go in the gym, right? So you're gonna do that, and you're gonna set those things in motion so that you've got little small goals that you can make so that you're going to get to working out 3 times a week or whatever it is that you set for yourself. Then you're going to make your goals SMART. You have heard that acronym, I'm sure, if you've been around for the last 20 years. SMART is, we talk about making those goals specific. How many times do I want to go to the gym? I want to go to the gym 3 times a week, so I'm going to make it specific. Is it my own goal? If my husband or my daughter were to tell me, Mom, you're getting really fat, you need to lose some weight, how much of my own goal would that be if I was to say, fine, I'll go lose some weight? I need to make it my own so that it's something I'm accomplishing for myself. That's really important. A is for action oriented. It's not something you just think about doing. It actually has to be an action. I'm going to physically go to the gym 3 times a week, or I'm going to physically go into the garage 3 times a week and do some cleaning. Not just think about doing it. It has to be something that's action, because actions change behaviors and thoughts, right? It has to be realistic as well. As much as I'd love to lose 5 or 10 pounds a week, it's not going to happen. I can set it down to saying I'm going to lose 1.5 pounds per week. That's fairly realistic when it comes to doing things properly. It has to be time defined. If you're looking at a garage that's full of stuff and you just don't even know where to start, even setting it time defined and saying I'm going to go into the garage 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week. I'm going to put a time limit on it. Not until I'm done one section or done a different section or cleaned the whole thing. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to make it 30 minutes in the garage. So that's SMART goals, and it really, really does help to do that. When it comes to setting immediate goals, you have to understand that when you feel overwhelmed, that's telling you that you're doing too much. And you're going to eventually stop succeeding and stop being able to pat yourself on the back, and you're going to go right back down into the pity party. What you have to do is pull back and make it into even more manageable steps so that you're not feeling overwhelmed. My lifestyle right now, if I was to say go to the gym 5 times a week, that would not be happening. I might do it the first week, but I would be so overwhelmed by the end of the week that I would never even go the next week probably. All right, so making repetitions into separate goals. When we say I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, or I'm going to go into the garage 3 times a week, and we don't, maybe we only go twice, then we're not allowed in our minds to check that off. If we were to say I'm going to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday to the gym, and we go Monday and Friday, we can say, oh, good for you. Good for me. I went twice this week instead of none. And that helps too. And as silly as it may sound, it really does help to have those little goals and little accomplishments so that you can feel better about yourself. And don't wait till you feel like it. I normally wear my Nike shirt because Nike, when they went out looking for a new slogan, they went and interviewed thousands and thousands of professional athletes, and they said to them, how is it that you get up in the morning and you start working out, and then you go do your sport, and then you work out again? Every single day you do that. And most of them said, you know what, they don't really ever feel like doing it every single day, but they just do it. And that's why Nike used that as their slogan. They just do it. Because even professional athletes don't feel like going to the gym and doing the work every single day. But until you force yourself to do it, you're going to enjoy it when you do go there. Or when you do start getting into the garage and cleaning. Once you get in there, you're probably going to go an hour because it feels good to even do those few little things and get things put away. So don't wait until you feel like it. For vague goals, we use time as our finish line. I've kind of touched on that. Maybe it's a matter of saying I'm going to go for a walk around the block for 10 minutes or 30 minutes, or I'm going to go into the garage for that 30 minutes. Make it time defined if that's what you want to use for your finish line. Common goals in goal setting is trying to do too much. Again, that feeling overwhelmed. Trying to do what you used to do when you felt healthy, when you weren't struggling with depression or anxiety. Trying to do much is a big, big pitfall. Basically what they're saying is work steadily and don't try your hardest all the time. You shouldn't feel like you're going at 100% all the time. Just as you're getting there, you want to start feeling better gradually. Feeling discouraged after 1 or 2 steps. If you went to the gym twice this week instead of 3 times, that's 2 more times than you went last week if you were sitting on the couch. And we have to be able to give ourselves the credit for that and pat ourselves on the back. Don't disqualify your successes. Give yourself credit for what you have done. You know what? This month I went to the gym 8 times. Might not have been the amount of times I had set for myself, but that's how many times I went. And good for me because I didn't do that last month. So when it comes to doing the cognitive therapy that your worker's going to want you to do, these are the things that she or he is going to ask you to do. Sit down, figure out what is it that you want to accomplish with counseling. What is it that you want to accomplish in your life? Sit down and make those goals out and figure out how you're going to get there. And that's what it is when we talk about the triangle of goals. How your thoughts, your actions, and feelings all interact and how you can go about changing those. The nature of depression. What is depression? A lot of people ask. And there are several different types of depression. It's more than just a low mood, and it really can impact your whole being. It can impact your thoughts and your feelings and your actions again. So that's that triangle of behaviors. It talks about major depressive episode. This is something where you're feeling down for at least 2 weeks and feeling extremely low or disinterested for most of the day, pretty much every day of those 2 weeks. And that can be a depressive episode. When it comes to major depressive disorder, that is when you have 1 or more of those depressive episodes. And that often can be diagnosed by a psychiatrist as well when that happens. Dysthymia is it's a milder form of depression, but it's still very important. It's about 2 years of just feeling down. A lot of times when I talk to people at intake, they'll say, I've got the most amazing husband, I've got a wonderful house, a good job, my kids are great. I don't understand it for some reason, I just can't find my happy. And that's what I used to call it, my poo-poo. I've struggled with depression pretty much all my life. And going into these sessions, even a depressive episode, you just feel like crap. And so then I kind of made that a little gentler term and said poo-poo. But dysthymia is that. It's just, you just can't find your happy for 2 years or more. And a lot of times you're functioning, you're doing what you need to do, but you're just not happy. That's what dysthymia is. Bipolar disorder, we've heard a lot about that in the past. It's usually called manic depressive disorder. And it usually involves a history of really, really high highs and low lows. And often when folks are in their high highs, they will buy things, they will go out and do extreme activities, whether it's sexual behaviors or just really crazy things. And then they'll get into their low sessions where they're feeling almost suicidal, and sometimes they do get suicidal. So that's manic depressive or bipolar disorder. So those are all different kinds of depression that a person can have, and all are important when it's affecting you, of course. Lethargic. A person just doesn't feel like doing anything. They just have a really big lack of energy. Often you're tearful. You're just crying at the drop of a hat. And this really bothers the guys especially because, women, we do it all the time, right? You're just extra sensitive. It's kind of like, it doesn't matter what somebody says to you, you can just blow and you don't understand why. Very, very tired. People just want to sleep all day. They have a really hard time getting up and functioning throughout the day. You have a loss of drive. You just don't want to do things that you used to do. Maybe you used to go out with your friends all the time or play with your grandkids or play with your own kids, and now you just don't want to. Low libido is also a big one. We talk about, depression, and often when it comes to depression, when it comes to what I call the depression outfit, we're sitting around in our sweats or pajama pants, a big old t-shirt, haven't brushed our teeth or our hair for weeks, and we just feel like poo. And when you talk about low libido, that's low sex drive. When you look at that scenario alone, you're not feeling very sexy. You're not feeling like you want to do anything, and you just don't have it. It's not there. Loss of enjoyment in things. Maybe you do go out and do the things that you are supposed to do, but you don't enjoy doing them. Maybe, you sit with your friends and you think, what did I ever want to do this for? It's not even fun. I don't like it anymore. Or go to a movie and don't enjoy yourself because your mind is somewhere else. Trouble sleeping is a big one. We have a lot of problems with sleep when it comes to depression, and oftentimes that just makes the other things even worse. So we always ask folks at intake, what's your sleep habits? Have they changed? Have they gotten worse or gotten better? Lack of appetite is another big one. A lot of times people will have a loss of weight when they're in a depressive episode. Again, on the other end, I'm one of those people that eat my feelings. So oftentimes it would be, gaining weight instead. So that's not really a definite one. It could be either or. And easily angered. Sometimes you can just snap. That's kind of one of my symptoms. I know when I get angry at people so fast that's the one that, I need to take a look at what I'm doing and get back to what I know I need to be doing. Causes of depression. Really, there isn't a single cause of depression. I mean, there may be a single event, a death or a divorce that can cause it, but oftentimes it is several different reasons. It's kind of that straw that broke the camel's back that happens. And again, most of them have multiple causes. So it's not just one little thing that all of a sudden you're sad. It's usually a buildup of something. There could also be a chemical imbalance. And we have a lot of folks that will tell us, well, I don't want to take drugs for depression. I don't want to get stuck on those. And I often will say, when it comes to taking medication for depression, it's the same thing as taking it for diabetes or heart condition. When it comes to depression, it's a medical thing. It's a chemical imbalance. And what that medication will often do is just kind of calm things down in your mind so that you're able to work on the cognitive behavior things that you need to work on. When you're feeling depressed or even anxious, things are just, you just get out of whack and you just can't see, you can't slow yourself down to focus on one thing. And that's often what medication will do for you. And then again, there are those situational things that, depression or loss of a child or loss of a spouse or loss of a job that can make depression happen just once and it never comes back again. But generally, it's a lot of things kind of piling up at once. What you need to do is try to reduce the negative factors that are within your control. And when we look at depression, we look at the factors. There's environmental factors. Major life events, again, that death or divorce or loss of job or retirement, big things that happen in your life. There's few rewards. Maybe you've been someone that's grown up in a very, very, dysfunctional home. You've never been told you're worth anything or valued. You've gone through life, with people like that have never patted you on the back, never told you how good you were, and you just have never had rewards in your life. Societal factors. Maybe you've been bullied as a child in school, or even as an adult. There's if there's racial things or gender things going on, different things can happen. Bigotry. So that's a societal factor. Isolation is another big one. Lately, we've had folks coming in from other provinces to Saskatchewan for oil before it kind of tanked on us. And they were coming in as families, and often there was, a woman in a hotel room even with kids and no car because the husband's out working and, 12, 14 hours a day. She has no way to get anywhere. She's got no contact with family except by telephone, and maybe even he's got the telephone. So isolation is a big thing, or just isolating yourself because you're not feeling well. That's a big one. Then there's personal factors on page 25. That's negative thinking. So again, are you a glass half empty or glass half full kind of person? That all depends. Your personal history. Maybe you've had a very dysfunctional life or an abusive relationship. Lots of things happen in people's lives that can cause depression. Age is kind of a minor factor. We've had depression from kids as young as 5 and right up to adults 105. It really isn't a big factor. And gender, it says that it is a factor, but I personally think that that's becoming a little bit more equal. I think the only reason women are disclose having depression more is because men just weren't. And now they're starting to come forward, and I think, in the years to come that gender will be a lot more balanced, let's put it that way. Marital status is another factor. They say that marriage seems to be a mild preventative factor for men especially. So being married for men is a preventative factor of being depressed, and sometimes for women it can be the opposite because there's a lot more jobs to do and things and responsibilities. Biological factors. Maybe you've got a family history of depression. You've got somebody that's struggled with it for years and years, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be depressed, but often when you see someone sitting around in their depression outfit, or never getting up in the morning, brushing their teeth, brushing their hair, it can have an impact on you, and it could be learned behavior. Well, that's, I guess, how things are, and that's the way you start acting, and a lot of times that can happen. Lack of exercise is a big one. We sit in front of these big screens nowadays, or these little screens, and we're texting, and we're not getting up and moving. And it's a totally different society even when it comes to children. So that's a big one. Poor nutrition, again, another big one. I mean, everything is takeout, fast food. Do you want to upsize that, supersize that? So much faster to just go and grab the wrong stuff instead of taking the time to make the good stuff. Physical ailments. If you are somebody that's had cancer or chronic pain for years, that can cause depression as well. It's really hard. Living with pain is a very difficult thing. And then there's drug-related factors. Maybe you're someone that's struggled with alcohol abuse or drug abuse for years. Those are depressants, and they can definitely cause depression to happen. So it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. You need to deal with the addiction issues so that you can start dealing with the thought processes that you do have with depression. The more negative factors we have, the more positive ones we need to get. So when it comes to major life events, there's not a lot of things we can do about some of those. But when it comes to isolation or negative thinking, your marital status, lack of exercise, poor nutrition, there's lots of different factors in those 2 pages that we can do and we have control over. Okay, now we're going to look at anxiety. The first step to managing anxiety is that you have to understand and recognize it. I had no idea I had problems with anxiety until a coworker mentioned it to me, and the more I stopped to think about it, the more I thought, you know what, you're right. And until you understand that, you just won't know, and you won't be able to understand what's happening for you. So again, self-awareness is very, very essential when it comes to anxiety. Facts about anxiety. Anxiety is completely normal. We are born with the ability to become anxious, and that's what we need to have, because when it comes to things in our life, we have things where we have to either fight, flight, or freeze. So you need to be able to fight for something, you need to run, or you need to be able to just stay still. And that's why we have the ability to become anxious. The problem is we do not realize that what we're becoming anxious about isn't something that we need to fight, flight, or freeze from. Anxiety is not dangerous. We're never going to die from anxiety. If you've ever had an anxiety attack, yes, as I understand, it's very scary. I've never had one. Hope I never do. But you've never died from it, and you aren't going to die from it. And it doesn't last forever. It does have a beginning and an end. And again, it's not something we can generally tell, whereas with depression, we can see someone walking around in their depression outfit. And with anxiety, we don't notice. I have no idea who in these rooms has anxiety, because it's very, very much anonymous. And when we talk to people at intake, they'll often say, well, I don't want to tell people about it because I don't want them to think I'm crazy. Little do they know, if they talk to the person next door, they probably suffer from it as well. We are a society that is becoming even more anxious as time goes by. What happens to your body when you're anxious? I'd like your facilitator to pause the tape again and give us some ideas. I'll give you a little hint. Here's one: rapid heartbeat and breathing. So what's something that you know, or maybe you've seen somebody with anxiety experience when it comes to anxiety? So I want to stop the tape and just have you, shout it out in the areas that you're at. Okay, now that you've had some time to share, I'm going to go through it here. Sweating is another one, big time. Nausea and upset stomach is a symptom. Dizziness, lightheadedness, tight or painful chest, and numbness or tingling sensations. And if you look at these, you're going to look at this top signs and symptoms, and you're going to say, holy cow, that sounds an awful lot like a heart attack. And often when people come into the hospital and in the middle of the night by ambulance, they think they're having a heart attack. And that's not what it is. The doctor will check out the heart, everything's fine, and they'll say, I think you have something, I think you've got some anxiety going on. And it's usually a surprise to most people because they don't notice the buildup until it's too late. And we don't understand what's going on. There can be unreality or bright vision. There can be really heavy legs, choking sensation, hot and cold flashes. So all of those would be really, really scary to be experiencing, and especially if you've never experienced it before. So it's very important to understand those signs and symptoms, and sometimes, yes, it is a heart attack, but very often it's not. It's an anxiety attack. When it comes to fight, flight, or freeze, it's our body's ability to, and it's a response that's activated when things are, when there's a real danger. But unfortunately, in the times the way they are now, we often respond this way when things really aren't that dangerous. And that's really unfortunate. We're going to look at how we're designed for survival. That is something that we were meant to have years and years ago, like say, go back as far as the caveman. If we use Fred and Barney from the Flintstones as an example, they're walking along, they've got their club over their shoulder, they're ready for anything, they're chatting away, and all of a sudden a saber-toothed tiger comes and starts chasing them. Fred, being as belligerent as he is, would probably stand and fight, and take a few whacks at the thing. Barney, being kind of the chicken that he is, might run, or he might just freeze right there. And that was kind of an adaptive behavior that we had as cavemen back in the day, because we had to, in order to survive. We don't have a lot of saber-toothed tigers anymore. In fact, I've never seen one myself, but it's something that we often think an issue is that saber-toothed tiger, but it's not. When it comes to anxiety, I always like to use this example. With anxiety, we've got your brain and we've got the limbic system. Inside the brain is the amygdala, and that is the gland that will shoot out your cortisol, your adrenaline, when something really scary has happened. So it really does, it just shoots it out and gives us that ability to fight, flight, or freeze. Prefrontal cortex is this ability to say, you know what, it's not a saber-toothed tiger, it's not a dangerous situation, I'm going to be okay. And it kind of calms you down. But when you're having that extreme stress, when the cortisol is just pumping out of your system, it's like throws your prefrontal cortex right off, and it says, well, I don't know what to do, where do I go, what should I do? And we have to be able to say, no, you know what, it's not going to hurt me. I need to just stop and think and rationalize and get back down to what I need to do. I often will use the deer story for an example. I'm not a hunter, but I was remarried after losing my husband 13 years ago, and I was remarried 5 years ago. Went hunting with my husband, first time since I was a kid, and we went hunting and we're chasing this deer. The deer's in the field and we're on the road, and we're going and going and going, and I'm just like, okay, are we going to do this or not? And he starts to slow down, and I said to my husband, like, shoot it already. We've been running for a long time. And he said, no, you know what, not going to do it. And I couldn't understand it. It made no sense to me. And he said, that deer's a mess, and I'm not going to kill it now. So when we talk about ourselves, even if we're that deer and we're running and running and running and trying to get away from somebody, and it's like that pop bottle full of carbonated water. When we stop and pull that lid off, it's like, psh, things just shoot right out. And the same thing with that deer. His body was so full of cortisol that he would have been a mess. His meat wouldn't have tasted good. Same thing for ourselves. If we are constantly full of stress, it's not good for us. And an anxiety or panic attack is one way of kind of getting that out. And it's unfortunate that we have to go through that kind of a thing, but quite often we're just so full of it. And if you look at the deer, after we stop chasing that deer, he doesn't just go back to, chewing on the grass and everything. He will actually stop, and he'll shake his head, and his whole body will ripple, and he'll paw at the ground, and he'll snort. And that's his way of getting that cortisol, adrenaline out of his system so that he can go on about his day. We don't de-stress as a culture. We don't de-stress anymore. We just go on and on and on and on, and we're shaking up that Coke bottle all day long until we get home and our spouse or our family will say, how was your day? And you pull that lid off and it's just boom, you're just ready to fume. We don't take that time anymore, and it's so important to be able to do that, because we need to be able to recognize that things aren't that bad. Don't sweat the small stuff isn't just a saying, it's true. We have to figure out how to do that. Anxiety is like a smoke alarm. It's kind of like moving into your new house, first time in your new kitchen, you put everything out, you've got your toaster, your blenders and all that kind of thing, and you make your first piece of toast the next morning and the smoke detector goes off because here it is right beside, where your toaster is. Very important to have that, but do you want that to go off every morning? No, you don't. But you also don't want to take the battery out. So you're going to move the toaster. You're going to do something different, right? But you're recognizing that that's going to happen if you don't move the toaster. When does anxiety become a problem? When you start avoiding people or places. Maybe you don't go out in the afternoons or in the evenings because there's too many people around. Or maybe you just don't go out at all because you don't want to have that anxiety attack again. Maybe you only go out at certain times. I know it's going to be slow at the grocery store at 10 o'clock in the morning, or you just start limiting yourself. Or you'll only go out with somebody else, or even maybe you'll only go out if you have an escape plan. How am I going to get out of there if I start to have an attack? That's when it's becoming a problem. You need to figure out how you're going to start dealing with your anxiety if those are the things that's going on around you. Recognizing anxiety. What happens for you when it comes to anxiety? Myself, when I get anxious, my shoulders go up and I start breathing a lot shallower and a lot faster but shallow. And I know that when I start doing that, okay, it's time to relax and just pull my shoulders down and start deep breathing. What is it that you can do that way? Recognizing your anxious thoughts. They usually involve something that's going to happen in the future. And I love the acronym FEAR. It's not in your book. We talk about fear being false evidence appearing real. Very few times we worry about what's happened. We start worrying about what we think is going to happen. And that makes it false evidence because we don't know. We have no ability to predict the future. So if we're looking at things in the future, we have to stop and say, wait a second. No, that's false evidence appearing real. Even putting that little fear on your fridge and saying to yourself, no, I don't know that that's what's going to happen. And being able to recognize that. Recognize your anxious behaviors. Are you avoiding people, places, or things? And identifying your triggers is another thing. What or when are the times when you become anxious or upset about things? Do you get more anxious in the evenings? If you've lost a spouse and you've been with them for years, evenings are really tough. What's something I'm probably going to get really upset in the evenings? Is it certain places? Is it certain things? Is it hearing certain things? Different situations, any certain time or any place. Learn to recognize your behaviors and your triggers within your own body so that you can start working on that. If a pattern can be found, then maybe you can do something about that and do something different. So we're going to look at page 34 and 35 in your workbook, and it has a stop sign on it. That's how you're going to recognize it. One of the things that you can ask, or some of the questions you can ask, are what am I reacting to when you're anxious? What is it that I'm reacting to? Is it something that I'm pretty sure is going to happen? Again, you're still guessing. Or is it something, no, I'm kind of making a mountain out of a molehill. I don't know that that's going to happen. What is it that I think is going to happen? Identify that. What's the worst and the best that could happen? Worst case scenario, best case scenario in that situation. Am I getting things out of proportion? Am I making a mountain out of a molehill? Is it really that important, what I'm worrying about? How important is it really? If you look at the situation, is it going to be that important tomorrow or 10 minutes from now? Is it really that important? Or is it just something you have to go through and you'll get through it and everything will be fine 10 minutes from now? Am I overestimating the danger? Is it really that bad? Is it something that I have to fear for my life, or is it just something that's going to make me uncomfortable? Am I underestimating my ability to cope? You know what? I've been through this before. I know I can do it. Yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable, but I can do this. Am I mind reading what others might be thinking or saying? Is it really fact? Or am I just trying to get into people's mind and filling in some blanks and I don't really know what's going on? Am I believing I can predict the future? Because we don't have the ability to predict the future. Is there another way of looking at this? How can I change my thought processes on this? Can I look at it in a different way? Is it fact or is it opinion that I'm dealing with? What advice would I give somebody else in this situation? If your friend were telling you what they're scared of, would you say, well, that's really silly. Why are you so worried about that? Because if that's what you'd say to them, stop and say that to yourself. Because quite often that's enough to smarten you up and start thinking, yeah, my friend would tell me to buck up and you can do this. Am I putting more pressure on myself? Just because I feel bad doesn't mean things really are bad, right? Because our feelings aren't necessarily correct. What do I want or need from this person or situation? So what do I need going into this? Or maybe what do they need? What would be the consequences of responding the way I do? Say you don't like crowds and you're really, don't like being around more than 2 or 3 people at a time. Well, what happens if your daughter or your child is graduating or getting married? How are you going to feel if you don't get to go to those ceremonies? How would it be if you were to react the same way that you normally would? Is there another way of dealing with this? What else could I do in this situation? What would be the most helpful action? And visualize yourself coping with it. So visualize yourself going through the situation, maybe making that speech or your first day on the job, whatever it is that you're anxious about. Visualize yourself going right through that and being totally competent, and then come back and go and do it. Chances are you're going to be totally different when you go there. So those are some of the things that you can take a look at. Also on page 34, there's different kinds of anxieties that folks can have. Generalized anxiety. It's an anxiety that a person has over a long period of time, like at least a month, that they can't seem to get themselves settled. They're just always anxious. Or there's a spontaneous panic attack. If you're a person that's experienced that, it's something that comes out of the blue. You can wake up in the middle of the night with it. It could come during the day. You're not even doing anything that would provoke anxiety, but all of a sudden it's just there. There's also phobic anxiety, and most people would know what that is. You're scared of snakes or spiders or flying or whatever it is that you're phobic about. You have post-traumatic stress disorder. That's often a result of something horrible happening to you, or watching it happen to someone else. A lot of people think they have that when really what they have is just the memories of what happened. Post-traumatic stress disorder is often reliving that experience as if you are really there. You're feeling the feelings as if you were really in that situation all over again. There's also obsessive compulsive disorder. Are you someone that has to have all your ducks in a row? Your bed's all made before you can leave the house, or your dishes all facing the same way, your towels all facing the same way, checking your doors 5 times, washing your hands 5 times. Like what is the compulsive things that you do have? That's a form of anxiety as well. So on page 35, it gives you some calm breathing exercises. Some things as simple as, breathing in for 4 seconds and then breathing out for 4 seconds. And some experts will say breathing out longer than you breathe in is actually better because you're breathing out the anxiety. You're giving yourself a little bit more time to breathe it out of your body, getting rid of that cortisol. You can do that, several times over. You can practice that in the supermarket. You can practice that while you're laying in bed. There's different kinds of things. We've got anxiety booklets available to people. We've got some some CDs for relaxation that people can have. There's apps on your phone. You can download relaxation apps that will play, calming music, or will talk you through, getting yourself comfortable right from the toes right up to the tip of your head. Lots of different things that you can do for anxiety. When it comes to the breathing, again, something in your book here. We don't have time to practice them, but they are here. And again, on the Anxiety BC is a website that you can go to. Lots of information on anxiety as well. Page 38, we have how to overcome perfectionism. That's a big section that we have. It's really, really good stuff. We do not have time to go through it right now. It was kind of information I found after the booklet and presentation were made up. But again, I think it's really important stuff because a lot of us are perfectionists, and we need to figure out how we're going to get through that and how we can kind of lessen the pressure that we put on ourselves. So that's a very good section to go through. What do we do when we feel anxious? Grounding is a big thing, and it's important to kind of pay attention to your body and understand that a lot of times when you're having a lot of anxiety and panic, you're breathing really, really fast. Years ago I was in the ambulance business and we used to call it hyperventilating, and now I know it was likely panic attacks. But we would take paper bags and put them over people's mouths, and they could breathe in, breathe out, and then you could hear the crinkle, crinkle, crinkle when they were breathing in and out really, really fast. and you could get them to slow down, and just by hearing that slowing of the crinkling, it started to relax them. That's a form of grounding. Even putting your hands over your mouth and doing it in your mouth, you can hear the difference when you start slowing down. Grounding yourself and starting to think about something other than your breathing or what's happening in your body. Again, we're just going to go through that stuff because it's in your book and you can do them as well. Calm breathing is in your book. So one other thing too, that I had a client that was at one of my sessions said, you know, there's also the 5 things, and this really worked for this person, and I understand how it could. You take a look around and you say, okay, what are 5 things that I can see right now? What are 5 things I can see within my area? What are 5 things I can smell? What are 5 things I can hear? And what are 5 things I can feel? So even if you have this little chart on your fridge and you know you're stressing out, you're starting to have a panic attack, go to your fridge and say, okay, 5 things I can see. And you start working on that and taking your mind out of your body and out of the physical symptoms that you're feeling. And it really does help. Meditation is also another important thing, and I recently went to a seminar and they talked about, you know, meditation isn't necessarily closing your eyes, crossing your legs and just going, oh. Some people can't do that, myself included. I would probably fall asleep. What you can do for meditation is when you're involved in something for anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, that is a form of meditation as well. Something like cleaning your garage or cleaning your house, or go for a run. Adult coloring books are really popular right now. Painting, reading, lots of different things that you can get yourself focused on for a time so that you're getting out of your head and out of your anxious behaviors and thoughts. Sleep is so important. Oh man, it is one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves. When we're short on sleep, life is not good. It's important to figure out how are we going to be able to do that. What are some of the things that we can do to ensure that we're going to get a good night's sleep? One thing is to avoid over-the-counter sleeping medications. So often when you take them, they'll make you more tired. You wake up with that hangover effect and you're just so sleepy. We've talked to doctors and pharmacists and psychiatrists who say melatonin is a really good thing to try. Speaking to your doctor or pharmacist about that, getting the right combination. Maybe you take one and it doesn't work, so you figure, oh well, it doesn't work for me. It's a matter of figuring out what amount of melatonin will work for you. Melatonin is what is in our body, in our brain, to help us go to sleep every single day. Sometimes just with things going on in our world, we don't have enough and we just need that little bit more. And it's not addictive, and it's something that we can do, and it really does give you that 4 to 5 hours of solid restorative sleep. Setting a standard bedtime and keeping to it, not being all willy-nilly with your sleeping. You need to say, okay, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, I'm going to bed, and it's time for bed. And put yourself to bed. Don't start doing something else. Well, I need to get this done. You know what? I can do that tomorrow. I need to go to bed. Same thing, setting a standard rising time. And they say don't try to sleep in. If you missed your sleep yesterday, sleeping in today doesn't make it better. You can't get that back. What they say is go to bed a little bit earlier the second night. Don't go to bed too early. So many times people will say, but I'm just so tired by 7 o'clock at night. What am I supposed to do? Why can't I go to bed? Because you're going to lay there and you're going to think and think and think and not be able to get to sleep. Or you're going to go to sleep and wake up at midnight and then not be able to sleep the rest of the night. Find something that you can, get your mind set on, do a couple things, watch a bit of TV if you have to. Keep yourself up until that standard bedtime. Save your bedroom for sleep, and we often will say wink wink adult activities as well. It's not a place that you bring your Xbox into it or watch gory movies on your TV, play with your cell phone. It's a place where you go to sleep, or wink wink. Right? So it's important to get that stuff out of your bedroom and make it a place that you want to go to sleep. Create a good sleep environment. I'm someone that needs to have dark, really dark. I've got my windows covered over. I like a fan at night. I wear earplugs because my husband snores. I have warm blankets so that when it's cool in the room that I can have, still stay warm. Create that sleep environment so that you're going to go to sleep at night. Avoid napping during the daytime. A lot of people will be tired and just think, well, I'm just going to sleep for 10 or 15 minutes. If you can sleep for 10 or 15 minutes, good for you. I'm jealous. But most people will sleep for 2 hours, and that's not going to help because then you're not going to be able to go to sleep in the evening. So again, if you are somebody that can sleep 10 or 15 minutes, go for it. And if you're not, just try and hang on for the rest of the day. Prepare for sleep. If we've ever had children, if you've ever had children or babysat, you know that you don't go start tickling a kid, getting them all riled up, let them play violent games, give them some sugar, give them some pop. We don't do that before bedtime. Same thing for ourselves. We want to start relaxing, maybe start reading a nice book, have a cup of warm tea, non-caffeine tea, or warm milk if you like that stuff. I don't. But what is it that you can do to kind of relax yourself and just de-stress before you go to bed? Practice your breathing. It's the perfect place to practice your breathing. Or turn on a CD with the relaxation video that you've asked us to send you. Or finding that app on your phone and being able to just relax and practice the breathing, because you don't want to wait until you absolutely need that breathing before you practice it. It's easy to practice it when you're doing well, then you'll be able to pull it out of your pocket when you really, really need it. What is the last thing that you did for fun, for yourself? I'm not saying when did you take your kids to their dance class because you really enjoy watching them. I want to know, what did you do for fun that you enjoyed, and when was it? So if we'll get the facilitator to pause, and we'll do that right now. Hopefully you all could come up with something that you've done in the last week or even in the last day. That would be great. Unfortunately, most people don't have that. Myself, my husband and I, we have Tuesday night is date night. Every single Tuesday night we either go to a movie, or if it's really bad, Smurfs or Box Trolls, we will go for coffee. It's non-negotiable. It's put into our weekly calendar. And even kids know, don't call mom because it's date night. It's so important to actually schedule things in, because you can get your life so filled up with things that aren't priority. They're not giving you anything back. And you need to have that stuff in your life. Whether it's something as simple as watching a funny movie, or going out and playing hockey, or going out jogging, or going out with friends. Those things need to happen, because you need to replenish. You need to get that stress out of your system. And when you do something enjoyable for yourself, that's going to help a lot. Fun is not an option. It is so important to do. I'm going to take a minute as well. We're going to play a video that shows, it's called Bob Newhart's Stop It. Now this is kind of a spoof on counseling, but I'm going to give you your fun for the week, and this is a really good CD.
Dr. Switzer?
Yes, come in. I'm just washing my hands.
I'm Catherine Bigman. Janet Carlisle referred me.
Oh, yes. Still being buried alive in a box.
Yes, that's me. Should I lay down?
Oh, no, we don't do that anymore. Just have a seat. And let me tell you a bit about our billing. I charge $5 for the first 5 minutes. And then absolutely nothing after that. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Too good to be true, as a matter of fact.
Well, I can almost guarantee you that our session won't last the full 5 minutes. Now, we don't do any insurance billing, so you would either have to pay in cash or by check.
Wow, okay.
And I don't make change.
All right.
And go.
Go.
Well, tell
What?
me about the problem that you wish to address.
Oh, okay. Well, I have this fear of being buried alive in a box. I start thinking about being buried alive, and I begin to panic.
Has anyone ever tried to bury you alive in a box?
No, but truly thinking about it does make my life horrible. I mean, I can't go through tunnels or be in an elevator or in a house, anything boxy.
So what you're saying is you're claustrophobic.
Yes, that's it.
All right, well, let's go, Catherine. I'm going to say 2 words to you right now. I want you to listen to them very, very carefully. Then I want you to take them out of the office with you and incorporate them into your life.
Shall I write them down?
Well, if it makes you comfortable, it's just 2 words. We find most people can remember them.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, you're there. Stop it! Stop it!
Stop it?
Yes, S-T-O-P, new word, I-T.
So, what are you saying?
You know, it's funny. I say 2 simple words, and I cannot tell you the amount of people who say exactly the same thing you're saying. I mean, this is not Yiddish, Catherine. This is English. Stop it.
So, I should just stop it.
There you go. I mean, you don't want to go through life being scared of being buried alive in a box, do you? I mean, that sounds frightening.
Yes.
Then stop it.
I can't. I mean, it's been with me since childhood.
No, we don't go there. Just stop.
So, I should just stop being afraid of being buried alive in a box.
You got it. Good girl. Well, it's only been 3 minutes, so that will be $3.
But I only have a 5, so
Well, I don't make change.
then I guess I'll take the full 5 minutes.
Fine. All right. Well, what other problems would you like to address?
I'm bulimic. I stick my fingers down my throat.
Stop it! None of some kind? Don't do that.
But I'm compelled to. My mom used to call me fatty.
No, we don't go there.
But I've been happy.
No, we don't go there either.
But my horoscope did say.
We definitely don't go there. Yes, stop it. What else?
Well, I have self-destructive relationships with men.
Stop it! You want to be with a man, don't you?
Yes.
Well, then stop it. Don't be such a big baby.
I wash my hands a lot.
That's all right.
Yes.
I wash my hands all the time. There's a lot of germs out there. Yeah, don't worry about that.
I'm afraid to drive.
Well, stop it! How are you going to get around? Get in the car and drive, you kook. Stop it!
Stop it! You stop it!
What's the problem, Kat?
I don't like this. I don't like this therapy at all. You're just telling me to stop it.
And you don't like it?
No, I don't.
So you think we're moving too fast? Is that it?
Yes. Yes, I do.
All right, then let me give you 10 words that I think will clear everything up for you. You want to get a pad and a pencil for this one?
Right.
Are you ready? Mm-hmm. Right here are the 10 words. Stop it or I'll bury you alive in a box!
I hope you enjoyed that video. I really think it's quite cute, actually. I'm going to ask your facilitator to let you get up and walk around 10 or 5 or 10 minutes and just give yourself, let your adrenaline get going, because this next section, thinking about thinking, is probably the most important part of this whole evening, and I want you to be ready and open to what I'm about to say. So take a few minutes to just kind of get out and have a cup of decaffeinated coffee and relax. Okay, this section is called Thinking About Thinking, the meat and potatoes of cognitive behavior therapy. I'd like to start you off with a power thought. Most of the time, what we think is our problem is not really our problem. It's the way we respond to our problem that's the problem. Might sound a little confusing, but if you really think about it, it's kind of how we react to things that make it a problem. Your history is not your destiny. We all have a past, but the good news is we all have a future. So when we turn the page to page 58, we're going to look at the situation, which is the real world. We're going to look at our interpretations or our thoughts, and then we take a look at our responses. So again, here's our triangle with our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. We're going to go through an example, a situation. Your waitress brought you the wrong order and she was really grumpy when you pointed it out. Now, probably none of you have experienced this before, I'm quite sure. What happens when we interpret the situation in the way that we do? Often we'll say, well, she's obviously in the wrong job. Our response, when we figure out she's in the wrong job, we decide, you know what, I'm just not going to tip her because she's a lousy waitress. Right? So it's the situation, which is real, but then it's based on our interpretation what our actions are going to be. So how we look at things, how we talk to ourselves. The real situation in this instance is Mary's 17-year-old daughter came home from school asking her to buy her a prom dress, so it was really expensive. They had a big fight. You know, Mary's been working double shifts because her coworker always calls in sick or just doesn't show up. And she's so exhausted, but she needs the money because she needs the extra tips so that she can pay for her daughter's grad expenses. Her ex never pays child support. So again, what we think is the problem isn't necessarily what the problem is, but it's how we respond to that problem that's the problem. Because now we're responding by not tipping Mary. What's the first thing that Mary needs? She needs the tip money. So we need to be able to figure out, you know, how we look at the situations, whether they're positive or negative, or, you know, whether they're real or not real, or are we making things up in our own heads. One of the things when it comes to situations is how we look at things. Are we somebody that's positive or are we somebody that's realistic? We have to be able to look at positive versus realistic thinking when it comes to changing our thoughts. When we change our thoughts, it's not called positive thinking that we're going to talk to ourselves about. It's realistic thinking. So things can be both positive and realistic that we tell ourselves in order to help ourselves get better and feel better. One of the examples, we tell yourself things that make yourself feel good for a minute, right? I'm the best student in the world. I'm the best athlete on the field. I'm the greatest singer in the world. If we really look at that, chances are we're going to think of somebody that's a better student or somebody that's a better athlete or somebody that's a better singer. Those are positive things that we tell ourselves that don't necessarily make ourselves feel better for very long. I often use schools now as an example of positive thinking. You know, we're trying to build the kids up, give them positive and better self-esteem, but we do things like, you know, we don't count things when it's a sporting event. We don't count the scores. We don't give kids marks in school anymore. They're no numbers anymore. It's just letters, because we don't want them to feel bad or feel, you know, less smart than the rest of them. What I find too, though, is it's not very realistic, because once you get out into that world, you're going to be, you know, graded based on your performance and how good you are at things. You're going to be in sporting events that have scores and you're going to lose, and you need to know how to deal with those things. So while they're positive things that we do for kids, they're not necessarily realistic things. Same thing for ourselves. Do we tell ourselves positive things or do we tell ourselves realistic things? Truth is, we can tell ourselves both. When I was struggling and at my deepest, darkest moments with depression, I, you know, would get into some pretty good pity parties, telling myself, you know, life sucks, I suck, I'm no good, and nobody loves me, everybody hates me, you know, the good old thing, the pity party that we fall into. And I started to tell myself, Sandy, you need to start talking to yourself differently. You need to start being more positive and realistic about who you are, because you need to believe that. What I did was I sat down and I wrote out on a piece of foolscap the ABCs right down to the letter Z, and you've got that on page 63 of your workbook. And what I did was I started to tell myself, okay, you know what, I'm ambitious. I know I'm an ambitious person. I'm bold. I'm courageous. I'm determined. I'm energetic. I'm a friendly person. And I'm a good person. And I went right down the whole list to the letter Z. And I wrote positive, realistic things about myself that I knew were true. And I had somebody in class say, but what if you don't feel that way? What if you don't think you're those things? And I said, I didn't feel like I was those things either at the time. But the more I told myself, I'm ambitious, I'm bold, I'm courageous, I'm determined, I'm energetic, and go down that whole list, sometimes 2 or 3 times at a session, the more I told myself that, the more I realized, you know what, I am a good person. So when I started talking negatively to myself, I would say these things to myself. And I carried that with me for months and had them, could barely open the paper without ripping it. You might want to put that on your fridge and walk by every morning and tell yourself positive, realistic things about yourself. If you have trouble coming up with those things, ask a friend, ask a relative. They know you sometimes better than you do, and maybe you don't even realize the good characteristics that you do have. So it's important to have those kind of thoughts and be able to tell yourself those kind of things when you're feeling down. Monitoring negative thoughts. What you tell yourself has a big effect on how you make yourself feel. Right? You tell yourself you're ugly or stupid or fat, that's how you're going to feel. When you're anxious or upset, stop and ask yourself, what did you last tell yourself? I remember going home one time and I'd lay on the couch and I just was having a major poo-poo and feeling, so sad and didn't want to do anything. And I stopped and I said, wait a second, when did this start? You were good this morning. You were good when you came home from lunch. When did you start feeling this way? And I could trace it right back to after coffee. Someone had come to my office. We had a disagreement. I didn't feel like I was being valued and started telling myself how silly and stupid I was and how undervalued I am and my opinion's not worthwhile, and got myself right down to where I was. And I was able to talk myself back and say, you know what, Sandy, it was a disagreement. That person has a right to their view. Doesn't necessarily mean they're right, because you know what, you're ambitious, you're bold, you're courageous, and I could talk myself back out of that. So when you're anxious or upset, stop and ask yourself, what did you last tell yourself? Because it's you that's telling yourself that's making you feel that way. Do you have a common negative slogan? Are you somebody that will, your immediate response is, oh, I'm so stupid, oh, I'm so ugly, oh, I'm such an idiot. What is your negative slogan? Chances are you probably have one. Power thoughts, again, not in your book, but something I like to share. You are the one person that you can never get away from. So it's important to have a good conversation about yourself with yourself. You can go to the deepest, darkest part of the earth, into your garage, into your basement, to the farthest corner, nobody's there. And you know what? You're still there. You're still going to be telling yourself things about yourself. You're the only one you can't get away from. So it's important to have a good conversation with yourself about yourself. Wisdom is nothing more than healed pain. I know I would never be in the situation I'm in now had I not gone through what I've gone through. I have learned a lot. And it's important to realize that you are the person you are because of what you've been through. You can choose to go through it, or you can choose to grow through it. Every situation is an opportunity to get better. And it's important, you have to figure out, what do you want to do? Do you want to just get through something, or do you want to learn something when you go through it? You can come out of a situation bitter, or you can come out better. A victim or a victor, right? Another power thought, if you wake up in the morning and tell yourself you're going to have a crappy day, you're going to have a crappy day. If you tell yourself you're going to be depressed, you're going to be depressed. Think about your thoughts and identify your ugly thoughts, and then change it. If you wake up in the morning and, oh my gosh, I don't want to go to work, I hate work, I have to listen to people all day, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be horrible. But if you get up in the morning and you say, oh, I can't wait to get to work and see my coworkers and talk to them again, and I can't wait to see what I'm able to help people with today. Oh, this is going to be an awesome day. How you talk to yourself, right? It's not what goes on around you that's the problem, it's often what goes on within you that's the problem. It's how you think and react to things that makes a difference. We all have what's called distorted thinking. So we have ways of looking at the world. We have interpretations, and two of the common ways that we distort is to look at things through using our faulty assumptions about ourselves, our lives, or others in general. Or we look at things in a biased way, like paying attention to the negative aspects. What we do is based on how we've grown up, how we've lived this life. We're going to take a look at page 65 of your workbook, Faulty Assumptions. We're going to go through these kind of step by step. I might paraphrase, but we're going to take a look at them, and I want you to check them off as we go through and just see how many you have for yourself. All right, on page 65, everything I do must be absolutely perfect, otherwise I'm a failure. That's us perfectionists. We have to have everything perfectly clean or perfectly in order, or people aren't going to like us. They're going to come and think we're slobs, or we're messy, or we don't know how to be good housewives or providers for our family. Everything has to be perfect. We need to look at that and be a little bit imperfect Try walking out of your house without making your beds for the day. See if the world crumbles when you come back home. It's going to be okay. Must always be at peak efficiency and performance. I used to work in a wire and cable plant, and if I made 6 reels one day, I would have to make 7 the next, and 8 the next, and 9 the next. I always had to be working at peak efficiency all the time, or I figured I wasn't doing good enough. I was kind of a 0 or 120 person all the time. I always had to be better. That's an assumption that I had on myself. Page 66, life is fair. Most of us nowadays have experienced something. We know that life's not fair, but those of us who haven't, anybody that hasn't experienced something traumatic might think, well, life's not fair. How come that's happening to me? You know, why did my pet die, or why did my house burn down? Life's not fair, and you know what? Life's not fair. And we have to be able to understand that one. If others disagree with me, then I must be wrong. So often, especially in classroom settings, you know, maybe we don't want to put up our hand when we ask a question, because what if someone thinks that I'm stupid, or that what if I didn't get the right answer, or not everybody thinks the same way as I do. You know what, it's important, you have to understand that your thoughts and your opinions matter. You don't have to match everybody else's. Even if you're wrong, that's okay, you have an opinion. I'm only worthwhile as long as I'm doing something for someone else. We get into that thing where we've always got to be, you know, cooking or cleaning or taking somebody somewhere and doing things for other people, and that's the only way that they're going to like me, is if I do these kind of things. I have a hard time sometimes even, you know, looking into my kitchen and seeing dishes on the counter and being able to sit down and read a book, because I probably should be doing that. Should. We shoulda, coulda, wouldas are some of the worst things we can say to ourselves, because when we don't do it, we become guilty or feel guilty for it. So we jokingly say to people, quit shoulding on yourself and give yourself a break. The way to be accepted and appreciated by others is to give. That's us people pleasers. We have to do everything that everybody asks us to do, because otherwise they're not going to like us. And the sad reality is, in life, not everybody's going to like you, and that's okay. You have to like yourself, and you have to understand that to do things for yourself, not necessarily everybody else. Anger is bad. We grow up a lot of times with, especially women, thinking, you know, we're not supposed to be angry or show our anger, we're supposed to be ladies. When in reality, anger is a good thing. Often it will tell us that somebody has crossed a boundary that we have for ourselves, and we need to be able to express that to them and be able to say, you know what, that's not okay. It's when you become abusive and screaming and yelling that anger is not a good thing. We have to keep that, you know, in check. Being healthy will mean not having strong emotions. We need to be able to express things. We need to be able to be happy, to be sad, to be angry, frustrated. We need to let that in, because if we don't, we're going to bury it in ourselves. We're going to have depression, or we're going to have anxiety. We need to get those feelings out. It's not healthy for us, but it needs to be, again, in moderation. When you're screaming and yelling like a banshee, that's not a healthy kind of emotion. You need to have, you know, the control, but be able to say how you feel when you feel it. I have to do everything I'm asked to do. Are you that yes person that every committee person loves, because they know they can phone you up and say, you know, will you be on this committee, or will you be the leader of this group, and they know that you're going to say yes? That's not good for you. Again, your priorities are out of whack, because chances are you're not doing anything for yourself. You're not having fun yourself, because you're too busy being on every committee that everybody asks you to be on. You have to be able to say no. You've got to learn how to say no and be a little more assertive. I have the power to change people. We do not have the ability to change anybody's behavior but our own. Often I'll get somebody phoning intake, you know, I need you to help me change my husband. He's doing this or that. Or my daughter's doing this, how can I make her change? You can't make anybody change but yourself. Good relationships have no problems. We think that, you know, oh, those Joneses, they have the most perfect relationship. They always look in love. They're always, you know, everything's perfect for them. They never yell or argue, whereas we're yelling and arguing all the time. People have issues, and we just don't see them. And working at Intake, I've certainly learned that. You know, people in the community I thought had the perfect lives don't. And that's okay, because nobody has that perfect life. It's unbearable when life is not the way I would like it to be. That, you know, when the kids leave home, we'll have more time for ourselves, or when we make more money, we'll be happier. You need to live in the moment instead of thinking something has to change before you can be happy, because it's not going to. Life is full of things happening every single day. So learn to live in the moment. It's easier to avoid life's problems than to face them. And I'm sorry, you guys, I'm going to pick on you because lots of times you'll do this. You think that if I just put it up on a shelf, I'm not going to think about it and it's good, I'm done. You know, lots of times we'll do that. People do that with regards to grief. I need to get through this quick so that I can move on and not think about it anymore. We need to be able to process things and go through things so that we can learn from them and be done. I need someone stronger or more powerful than myself to rely on. This means that we're always going to be dependent on somebody else. And often we'll think that, you know, I can't do this by myself, I can't be alone, you know, what if my spouse leaves, I can't stand up for myself because they might leave me. If you're in a situation where you need to stand up for yourself, you need to do that because you don't need that other person around if they're not going to be treating you properly. So you have to understand that you are more capable than you are thinking that you are. I need other people to be supportive of me. We may think that, we may want that, you know, I want my boss to think I'm awesome, I want my spouse to think I'm awesome, I want them to tell me that I'm awesome. But if you're going to sit around and wait for that to happen, you might be waiting a long time. You have to be able to say that to yourself. You need to be able to say, good job, I did awesome today. I got myself to the gym 3 times, or I cleaned half my garage, good for me. You don't need someone else to tell you, to approve of you. You need to do that yourself. If you get that approval, that's awesome. But if you don't, you need to be able to give it to yourself. Did anybody have more than 3 or 4 of those? Often you do. And that's okay because you're going to be able to go into a worker and you're going to say, you know what, I do a lot of this, this, or this. I really need to figure out how I can stop doing that. So those are assumptions. When it comes to biases, that's our next section. That's page 70. Biases are what we do when we look at things through our rose-colored glasses or through our blue-colored glasses. How we have experienced life so far is how we look at things and in a biased way. Some of the assumption or some of the biases that we have is all or nothing thinking. You know what? I'm on a diet for 6 weeks and I went to the Dairy Queen last night, had an ice cream. Oh well, diet's over. Forget it. I'm done. You know, you're either fat or skinny, rich or poor, dumb or smart, or there's no gray. There's black or white, and that's all there is to it. So that's all or nothing thinking, totally good or totally bad. And we have to be able to look at the gray areas when we're thinking this way. Filtering. We seem to only remember the bad parts of a day or life instead of the good stuff. You know, we focus on when the boss yelled at us, you know, at 2 o'clock this afternoon, but we forget about the amazing presentation we had this morning and how everybody was so excited and happy with what we've done. We focus on that one really bad thing instead, and we filter out the positive stuff. We underfocus. Sometimes we try to do so many things at one time that we don't do anything well. We need to figure out how can we do, you know, the things in order of importance, maybe just writing things down. I really like the example they have in here. It says, I have to clean out the garage, but I also wanted to call about my insurance, and the house is a mess, and the kids are coming home for lunch, and I don't have any food, and I just started the laundry, and I have to get that report done for work. Wow, how much stress is that in a day? Whereas you need to write things down and say, okay, here's what I need to do in order of the things that I need to do. Maybe I don't need to clean the whole garage today because it sounds like a pretty busy day. Maybe I don't have to get the laundry done, or I can, you know, give that to somebody else. You need to be able to focus on everything singly at a time, because you want to do one thing good instead of, you know, 10 things bad. One thing at a time. Overgeneralization. This is a really good one. I always use my workmates as my example for this. Basically what overgeneralization is, using a single negative event to come up with a depressing general rule. We can be sitting around the coffee table and we've had a beautiful winter so far, but we've had 3 or 4 days of, you know, minus 20 or minus 30, and all of a sudden it's the worst winter we've ever had. You know, same thing when it comes to summertime. We might have had beautiful weather, just perfect, you know, 20s, low 30s, and we have a couple of, you know, 3 or 4, 30 or 40 days, minus 40, sorry, and all of a sudden it's the hottest summer we've ever had. So we overgeneralize, and we need to think that there's no absolutes, right? We might have 4 days, but it's not going to be the worst winter ever. Disqualifying the positive. You know, I might have lost 3 pounds this month, but instead of looking at that, I think of, well, look at all the times I screwed up during that month, and I should have lost 5 instead of 3, and blah, blah, blah. We need to be able to remember that those positives count, because it's 3 pounds I hadn't lost the month before. Mind reading. I always used to tell my counselor I'm an amazing mind reader, and she would say, no, you actually suck at it, because I did. But I did it all the time. I would fill in blanks when people weren't talking, or I would walk into a room and start thinking, oh, they must have been talking about me. We do that all the time, and we need to remember to stay inside our own heads. We don't know what other people are thinking. We have no way of knowing that, so we need to stop and say, wait a second, I'm filling in the blanks, I'm mind reading again, and stop ourselves. The fortune-telling error is a big one as well. Most of us will think, we know what's going to happen. If we do this, this is going to happen tomorrow. We don't know that. We have no idea, so we need to stop and tell ourselves, you know what, I'm doing that again, I'm starting to predict the future. I don't know that that's going to happen, and I need to stop doing that. You don't own a crystal ball. Page 72, magnification and minimization. You exaggerate your own foul-ups and other people's achievements. So she has her degree, she's a genius, but I took the wrong bus the other day, what an idiot I am. So again, you're magnifying her achievements and you're minimizing yourself. I landed a good job, but they must have been desperate to hire. She lost her job, but it was probably politics. We're not measuring ourselves with the same ruler that we're measuring everybody else. And we need to learn to do that, use that same scale for ourselves that we do for everybody else. Catastrophizing. We make mountains out of molehills. We start building and building and building on what's going to happen if we do this today or tomorrow. We have to be able to figure that out. I mean, I messed up an interview. I'm never going to have another job in this town again. Really? It's pretty big. We need to bring it back down, dealing with the event, not with the imaginary consequences. Emotional reasoning. I'm afraid of getting more depressed, so I must be on the way to the biggest depression ever. I feel so hopeless, so I must have no hope. Right? We do that. We assume that whatever we feel must be how we're feeling, but we never think, well, I feel happy, so everything is going to be wonderful. We always go back to that negative stuff and focus on it instead. Don't believe everything you feel. Labeling is another important one. I'm a loser, I'm an idiot, I'm stupid. We start giving ourselves those labels, and what that does is gives us an unchangeable characteristic about ourselves or someone else. So it's something that they can't change or we can't change. We have to focus on the event. You know what? I made a mistake. It's not a big deal. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm not an idiot. I just made a mistake. So those are the biases, and there's worksheets at the end of both of those sections. So maybe you can figure out what are some of the most common biases that you use and be able to check yourself on it. Showing somebody else this information is also important because they can help you. When I was going through my counseling, I had a daughter who was about 13 at the time, and I would come home and I'd show her this stuff. And eventually got to the point where she'd say, Mom, you're doing that again, you're minimizing, or Mom, you're filling in the blanks, or Mom, you're generalizing again. And quit shoulda, woulda, coulda, Mom, you're doing that again. And having someone in your world that can help you identify what you're doing will help you start to change. Because those are the thoughts that you want to change so that you can, change your behaviors. And then you're going to change how you feel as well. So of all the stuff in this book, the distortions are some of the most important information that you're going to get. Those are the two sections that are going to help you the most. When you start identifying what you're doing, you're going to be able to start changing yourself. Again, how many do you have? Do you recognize the ones that you have? So we'll stop it for a few seconds or a few minutes, and a facilitator can find out if you have any questions for that. Next, we're going to look at relationships. A fact, there's no such thing as a perfect relationship. Relationships take maintenance. It's something that we have to work on no matter what. All relationships need to be maintained, and all of them take work. It doesn't matter whether it's in your work relationship or whether it's a friendship or family or even romantic. We have to be willing to work on things. I marvel at people that have been married for 40 or 50 years, because if you look at relationships nowadays, they're like a toaster, right? A toaster doesn't work, we don't send it in to get fixed, we go get a new one. Same thing with relationships. We tend to do that a lot, where, you know what, I don't like what he or she's doing, I'm done. We're done. We have to be able to work on our relationships and do the things that need to be done in order to fix them. Signs of a healthy relationship, it should bring more joy than sorrow. Your life should not be full of just fighting and fighting and fighting all the time. There has to be good times. All relationships have stress at times, but these moments should not be continuous. In unhealthy relationships on page 105, we have to look at how many of these characteristics apply to your relationship and how many of them do you feel that you could change. For example, feeling pressure to change who you are for the other person. You feel worried when you disagree with that other person. You feel pressure to quit activities you usually are used to enjoy. You pressure the other person into agreeing with you or changing to suit you better. You notice one of you has to justify your actions. You notice one partner feels pressured to have sex or has been forced. You have a lack of privacy and may be forced to share everything with that other person. You or your partner refuse to use safer sex methods. Notice arguments are not settled fairly. You experience yelling or physical violence during an argument. You attempt to control or manipulate each other. You notice your partner attempts to control how you dress or criticizes your behaviors. You don't have time to spend with one another. You have no common friends or a lack of respect for each other's friends and family. Notice an unequal control of resources, food, money, home, car, etc. And you experience a lack of fairness and equality. All of these, if you relate to this is an abusive relationship. This is not something you want to be in. You have to find help. Envision again is a good place to find help with that because they deal with families that are stressed. They help women that have experienced abuse in a relationship and men as well. You have to be able to realize that it's not the end when you're struggling with this. Some of these characteristics are bad, but it doesn't mean you have to end your relationship on it. It just means that you need to work on it. And you do have the power to improve, and when you improve yourself, oftentimes that other person will improve as well. 10 tips for a healthy relationship. You have to keep your expectations realistic. You know, is it super important to have all the clothes in your closet the same direction? Is it all your towels have to be the same way? Do you have to have everything your way? You have to be able to compromise when it comes to a relationship. Talking with each other. We get into, text messaging or Facebooking or, just doing everything online. We don't talk to a person face to face, and it bothers me so much because you can't tell whether the other person is crying, whether they're angry. Emoticons don't do it. You need to be able to talk to people and do it face to face if at all possible, or at least phone to phone. Be flexible. Again, how important is it? Does it have to be your way or the highway? Taking care of yourself. Are you sitting around in your depression outfit, not brushing your teeth, not combing your hair? When you start taking care of yourself, that other person is going to recognize that, and they're going to start feeling closer to you and paying more attention to you. It gets really tiring. It's hard to live with a person that's dealing with depression or anxiety because we can't help them, we can't fix them, and so often we just kind of back away and be dependable. If you're somebody that says you're going to be there at 7 o'clock, be there at 7 o'clock. Your time is just as valuable as the other person's time. And fight fair. I pick on women usually for this because we have the ability to think of things from years ago and bring that into a fight, and that's not fair. We need to deal with, again, the situation that's at hand, not something from 20 years ago. Show your warmth. Are you somebody that's been married for 20 years and you don't even touch the other person anymore? You don't tell them how important they are anymore? Even walking by them, they're doing dishes and, that's my dream. They're doing dishes and you walk by and you pat them on the bum and they're going to wonder what the heck did you do that for? But if you start doing that kind of thing again, start treating them like you did when you first met them to get that warmth and emotion back into a relationship, it really, really does work. Keeping your life balanced. Again, are you somebody that's never home to spend time with that other person? Are you somebody that's always on your phone listening, looking at voicemails or emails, or what's going on? Are you giving that person the attention that they need? And are you freeing up time for that other person? It's a process. It's not going to change in a week or a month. You didn't come to this position, in a quick time. It's usually developed over years of, dysfunction. So give it the time and do the work that it takes to make into your relationship into a good one. Be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else just so that person will like you, because you're going to become resentful. You're going to start, depression yourself because you're not able to be the person that you are. And it's not right. You're not being truthful to that other person. So that's what we have on relationships. We also have a video, it's called Male Brain, Female Brain, and it talks about how we are so different, men and women, and we just have to be able to understand how each other think, and that helps us get through the tough times a little bit better too.
We're going to start discussing men's brains, women's brains, and how they're very different from each other. Now, I want to start with men's brains. All right, now men's brains are very unique. Men's brains are made up of little boxes. And we have a box for everything. We've got a box for the car. We've got a box for the money. We've got a box for the job. We've got a box for you. We've got a box for the kids. We've got a box for your mother somewhere in the basement. We got boxes everywhere. And the rule is, the boxes don't touch. When a man discusses a particular subject, we go to that particular box, we pull that box out, we open the box, we discuss only what is in that box. All right? And then we close the box and put it away, being very, very careful not to touch any other boxes. Sorry, my Catholic upbringing got in there for a minute, but I'm not a Catholic, but I went to Catholic school when I was little. I had a nun who taught on hell like she was born and raised there. I mean, I'll never forget it, but it did me good, actually. It was a good thing. Now, women's brains are very, very different from men's brains. Women's brains are made up of a big ball of wire. And everything is connected to everything. Money's connected to the car's connected to your job, and your kids are connected to your mother, and everything's connected to everything. It's like the internet superhighway. And it's all driven by energy that we call emotion. It's one of the reasons why women tend to remember everything. Because if you take an event and you connect it to an emotion, it burns in your memory and you can remember it forever. The same thing happens for men. It just doesn't happen very often because, quite frankly, we don't care. Women tend to care about everything. And she just loves it. Okay? Now, men, we have a box in our brain that most women are not aware of. This particular box has nothing in it. It's true. In fact, we call it the nothing box. And of all the boxes a man has in his brain, the nothing box is our favorite box. If a man has a chance, he'll still go to his nothing box every time. That's why a man can do something seemingly completely brain dead for hours on end. You know, like fishing. And we love it. That's why a guy can sit in front of a TV and go. Get close. Of course, this drives our wives nuts because they'll come up and say, "Stop it! You can't possibly be watching anything!" I'm not. Go away. Now they've actually measured this. The University of Pennsylvania a couple of years ago did a study and discovered that men have the ability to think about absolutely nothing and still breathe. You know, they connected all the wires and stuff like that, watched their brain activity, and then all of a sudden, I think he's dead! Huh? Yeah. Women can't do it. They can't do it. Their minds never stop. And they don't understand the nothing box. And it drives them crazy. Because nothing drives a woman more crazy or makes her feel more irritated than to witness a man doing nothing. Now, one of the biggest revelations I get out of women is this whole nothing box issue. They just, everything's starting to make sense. And I've had women say, "Oh, it's nothing. Well, can I go and there's nothing?" Now, one of the biggest revelations I get out of women is this whole nothing box issue. They just, everything's starting to make sense. And I've had women say, "Oh, it's nothing. Well, can I go in his nothing box with him?" No! Why not? Because then it's something! Besides, you'll walk in there and go, you know, this place could really use some pictures. Nice little table over here, some flowers. No! Nothing! Get out! We don't want nothing. Now this handles the way men and women handle stress. Okay? When a man is stressed out, all he wants to do is run to his nothing box. This is how we unwind. The last thing we want to do when we're stressed out is talk about it. We don't want to talk about it, we just want to. Because this drives her nuts, you know. A woman will see a man in that vegetative state and she'll come out and go, "What you thinking about?" Nothing. We gotta be thinking about something! No, I was thinking about nothing. Like I was on a roll till you showed up. go away. All right? Because that's how he handles stress. He just. Now, when a woman is stressed out, she has to talk about it. If she doesn't talk about it, her brain will literally explode. So she'll start just, I don't know, my husband do this, not, I'm gonna have to do that, you know, I never thought about this, my brother over here to me, and I know men who run from their wives when they do this. Then I say, well, why do you run from her? He says, because I don't know what to tell her. I said, dear God, man, who told you to tell her anything? She wants you to tell her anything. See, a lot of guys, they feel obligated when you start explaining all your stress, they feel obligated to fix you. Right? Because that's what a man does. A man only tells his troubles to another man in hopes that that man will help fix it. Okay? But she's not a man. And you try and fix her, she's gonna kill you. Right? She doesn't want your advice. She doesn't want your help. She wants you to shut up and listen. And come away. That's right, you tell it. Now listen, shut up. They like that. Now, I had one guy tell me, he said, man, she just tell me how she feels. I said, she doesn't know yet. So what it is, that's how she figures out how she feels by connecting this wire to that wire, this wire, this one. Now, because they love each other, they offer to each other their answer, their solution. A man senses his wife is stressed out. He loves the girl. He offers to the girl his best and finest solution. I just quit talking about it. Just quit thinking about it. And that's when she starts reaching for the knives and stuff. She's gonna stab you if you keep it up, okay? Now, a woman, she senses her husband's all stressed out. She loves him. Therefore, she offers to him her best and finest solution. Dr. Gay! Why would you talk to me? Go away. He doesn't want to talk to you. Leave him alone. He will not die. He's not a woman. Or, I know you've got to talk it through or you're going to be twisted inside. He's not like that. Leave the boy alone. You tell him he's stressed out, just let him go to his nothing box.
Now we're going to look at the road ahead. Putting the skills that we learn in this workbook into practice will make you feel better. You will do better. But it's really important not to forget where you've come from in order to keep these things going in your life. You have to be able to keep doing what you're learning here to make yourself healthy. People often feel, well, I need a break, I don't want to keep going to the gym every day, but this week I'm just going to go twice, and they'll start cutting back. Or they decide, you know what, I'm good enough, I'm feeling as good as I want to feel, so I'm good, I don't have to do this anymore. Sometimes they feel like, I don't ever want to remember, when I was doing Change Ways that last time, I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to see this book again because it's the worst I ever felt in my life, and I just want to forget about it. It's a faulty idea to think that caring for yourself is something you do only when you feel truly awful. You've got to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. Do the activities in this book. check yourself all the time, because that's what's going to keep you feeling better. Good mental and physical health is more than the absence of disease or distress. It's about caring for yourself when you're feeling good so that you can stay feeling good. Your emotions and sense of well-being give you valuable feedback about how things are going. And if you're beginning to feel down or anxious or overwhelmed, you can use the information. Ignore the feelings and you're going to get worse and worse. Waiting until you feel miserable before you do something is a very bad idea. If you catch yourself before you start feeling bad, you're going to be able to make yourself better right away. Lots of people will wait until they feel at their most horrible, and then they call in and say, you know what, I need help. And again, with our wait lists, we often don't have the ability to make that happen. What if it comes back? What if you're feeling better and you start to feel sad again and the depression comes back? You know what? It can happen. How can you reduce the chance of that happening though? You can take care of yourself. You can do the things that are in this workbook to make yourself feel better. The strategies that help make you feel better are for the most part the ones that are going to keep you feeling better. So it's not something, again, to do just when you're feeling bad. Some of the things you can do is to plan ahead for stress. A key part of early prevention is to recognize that you are struggling. The earlier you become aware of this, and the bigger impact it can have, because you can start working on things again and getting yourself back into the healthy behaviors and choices. Factors that predict a difficult period, these are some things that we know we can prepare for if they're coming up, because a lot of times we do have some warning that we might experience some difficulties in the future. Things like the death of a loved one. Maybe you've got a relative or friend that's been given a terminal diagnosis. So you know that in 3 months or 6 months, when that time is up, that you're likely going to need to be there for your family, or you're going to need some help, or you're going to need to be there for your friends. So important to be able to plan ahead for something like that. Maybe divorce. You're experiencing one yourself, or a family or friend is going through it. How are you going to be there for them? Lighten up your schedule so that you can do that. Separation. Maybe your child is going to university, your last one in the fall, and you need to figure out, okay, what am I going to do to fill the time that I used to spend with that child? Start figuring out what you're going to do when you have that empty nest. Health-related events. Maybe somebody is ill, or somebody's pregnant. When my daughters were pregnant, I would always make sure that I had the time that they were due, open for them, so that I could do babysitting or help them, housework or whatever it is that they needed. So you do have that ability to look ahead for something like that. Maybe new adjustments or responsibilities, a new child in the family, or promotion at work, or new job. What are some things you can do to prepare for that? Maybe you've got exams or presentations that you have to do coming up, and you know that you always get stressed out before that. So lighten your load again for something like that. Financial events. Often I'll use breakup as an example for this. We know that breakup comes every single year. It's not a surprise to us. So maybe this year you're going to figure out, what can I do differently to prepare for that? What are some financial events, maybe retirement, or you're going down to a one job or one income family. What are some things that we can do to prepare for that, so that we know, what we're going to be doing? Onset of winter is another big one. If you know that you suffer from seasonal affective disorder or SAD, what are you going to do to make that happen next year so that you can get through it better? Maybe you want to have a friend that is going to go aquasize 3 times a week with you. Maybe you've made arrangements for them to come over for coffee once a week so that you can spend time with them. What are some things that you can put in place when that happens? Could be a difficult milestone. If you have an anniversary of a death or some kind of traumatic event, often even children will remember, maybe not consciously, but their bodies will remember traumatic times of their lives, death of a parent or a loved one, yourself. The end of a major project. Maybe you've been building a house for 2 years and it's coming to an end, and you wonder, what am I going to do with all this extra time? Maybe you and your hubby aren't used to spending that much time alone with nothing to do. What are some things that you can do to plan for that? The Mood Emergency Action Plan. Increase your rewards. If you need to, if you've been doing well, instead of just keeping on going, stop and give yourself a reward. So you've got those things. You know what, I'm going to go to the movies tonight, or I'm going to invite a friend out for lunch. I deserve to have that. I'm going to reward myself. Reduce your obligations. If you know things are coming up, just Say, you know what, I just can't do that right now. I'm not having a good time. I'm a little bit stressed. I need to cut this out this week. Doesn't mean you have to cut it out forever, but maybe don't go to that meeting this week or this month. Get support. Ask for help. There's nothing wrong with that. I always tell people, you know, they say, well, I've got friends, but I don't want to bother them because they've got their own troubles. If you were that friend, would you want you to talk to them? Yes. You would want your friend to come to you and say, I'm having some tough times. Can I talk to you about it? Because again, it takes your mind off your own troubles, but people want to help and they just don't know how. So asking someone for help, there's nothing wrong with that. And you'd be surprised how many people would say, you know what, I've been through depression myself, or I've been through anxiety myself. And you're surprised because you think you're the only one that's ever had to go through it. Manage your lifestyle. Again, the diet, the exercise, the getting out there and being with people and being social, all those different things. Be able to manage yourself and to get back to doing what you know you need to do. And the important thing is to get professional help. If you're struggling, if you're ever to a point when you feel, you know what, life sucks, I suck, I don't want to be here anymore, I'm done. That is such an important thing to be able to recognize, because your thoughts aren't far from your actions. And depending on your impulse control, you don't want to go there. So when you're feeling to that point, you need to, first of all, either tell somebody in your house that you're feeling like you don't want to be here, that you're not safe. If that person isn't there, you need to call 911. You need to call 811. 811 has a mental health professional 24 hours a day. They can talk to you. You can call intake. You can go to a doctor's office. You can go to the ER. Do not sit back when you're having those feelings, because oftentimes you just decide I'm done, and nobody wants that, because everybody knows suicide is not the answer. It's a matter of just getting your help, getting your thoughts changing, and you're going to be so much happier that you've done that. So again, get professional help.